Hey y'all, what's good? Welcome back to the That's Ricky's Gaming channel. And for this vid, we're going to be hopping on Apex Legends. In the first couple of days of the new season, there's been a lot of things introduced, such as the new game modes and the new character. But besides all that, we're going to be focusing specifically on the guns. So there's 30 weapons to choose from in Apex, and some of them got buffs and some of them got nerfs. Which makes me wonder, if I was to rank the guns themselves, which would be the best and which would be the worst. So we're going to be testing the damage per bullet on headshots, body shots, and limb shots to see how forgiving or unforgiving the weapon is. I'll be testing the weapons with and without attachments as well to see how viable they are. And I'll be adjusting the dummies to test the headshot damage from the weakest to the strongest helmets. We'll be testing range from up close, 25 meters, all the way up to 75 meters.
Headshot.
And we'll be going from left to right, so we'll be starting with the snipers. So the first weapon we'll be using to start off the test will be the Wingman. And we'll be going over the damage per bullet in order to get the totals. So the headshot damage per bullet is 86 on white helmets, 71 on blue helmets, and 63 on purple helmets. And we won't be using red dummies because red dummies have gold helmets, and the gold helmets and the purple helmets share the same damage reduction. So we won't be needing the red dummies. So now let's get into the body shot damage per bullet and the limb shot damage per bullet. So the Wingman does 45 to the body, and this is the same on all Evo shields. And it does 41 to the limbs. So the Wingman without attachments is doing these totals: the lowest damage, which is all limb shots, the average damage, which is all body shots, and the highest damage, which is all headshots on white helmets, blue helmets, and purple helmets. Now that we got the damage totals out the way, we can go over the Wingman with attachments. So the list of attachments the Wingman can have is the boosted loader, and that's it. So the boosted loader gives an additional 2 bullets. So that gives us these damage totals for the Wingman with attachments. So just as a recap, these are the ranges that we'll be testing from to see if the weapon is great, okay, or trash. For the Wingman at close range, I'm gonna say it's great because since it's a pistol, it does have great hip fire and the bullets do a lot of damage. So you can use this weapon exceptionally well, anywhere up from 0 meters all the way up to 15 meters away. The Wingman is also good for mid-range because of the stray speed and the fire rate. And for the Wingman, I'm gonna say it's great at long range as well. Regardless of it being a pistol, I can still line up my shots as if it was an actual sniper rifle. It could be one of the reasons why they chose to make it a sniper weapon. For being fired from 75 meters away, it has amazing stability. Now that we finished up with the Wingman, we can head on to the next weapon. Alright, next we'll be testing the Longbow. So the Longbow was one of the guns that got altered. Anyway, so the damage we get per bullet is 106, 87, and 77. Body shot damage is 55, and limb damage is 44. And without attachments, we get these damage totals for the Longbow. Now let's go over the Longbow with attachments. As of Season 21, the Longbow does not have a hop-up. It still has a magazine though, so the bullet total goes up to 12. So that will give us these numbers. I'm gonna say the Longbow is okay at close range just because it's a sniper rifle and is not recommended, but it does have really good fire rate and damage. Now I will say the Longbow at mid-range is great. The more distance you put between yourself and the opponent, the better. It has great stability and fire rate for mid-range. And lastly, the Longbow is exceptionally great at long range. And because it is a sniper rifle, it gives access to the sniper optics, which can further extend its range. Alright, now that we're done with the Longbow, we can move on to the next sniper rifle, which is the charge rifle. And the charge rifle is actually pretty unique in terms of the damage, because the further away you shoot the charge rifle, the more damage it does, as it is displayed on the screen right now. We're not going to count this into the testing, but we will keep this in mind when it comes to the totals. And speaking of, let's get into the testing for the headshot damage. And the base damage for a white helmet is 135. The base damage for a blue helmet is 113. And the base damage for a purple helmet is 101. A body shot is going to give you 75. And shooting the limbs is going to give you 68, which ends up numbering up to these numbers. And just a reminder that these numbers are just the minimum. So the charge rifle doesn't come with a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, so the bullets go from 6 to 12. That gives us these numbers, which are, again, the minimum. The charge rifle is okay at close range. The charge up for the bullets is what makes it kind of bad, but the damage is good. I just wouldn't recommend it. The charge rifle is great at mid-range. The charge up holds it back a little bit, but it's still good because the further away you are from an opponent, the better. And at long range, the charge rifle is great. It has the access to sniper optics, which makes it more accurate, and the further away I am from the target, the more noticeable the damage increase is. And that's about it for the charge rifle. So now we're going to head to the last sniper rifle before moving on to the shotguns. which is the Sentinel. Now the Sentinel is unique as well because it's only one of 2 weapons to utilize consumables. So the charge up Sentinel will get tested as well because it has set numbers. So the headshot damage on a Sentinel is 126, 105, and 95. So now when the Sentinel's all charged up, it does 158, 132, and 119. Uncharged body shots are 70, and the limb shots are 63. The charged body shots are 88, and a charged limb shot does 79. So with all that damage, we get these numberlicious totals. Now it's time to go over the Sentinel's attachments. So the Sentinel does not have any hop-ups, but it does have a mag, so it goes from 4 bullets to 7 bullets, which gives us these totals. Alright, now it's time to test the range on the Sentinel. So the Sentinel at close range is okay. It does high damage, but it's a bolt action sniper rifle, so I wouldn't recommend it up close. The Sentinel from mid-range is great. Whether it's charged or uncharged, it still hits like a truck, and it has a really decent fire rate. Whether it be charged or uncharged, the Sentinel will always be great from long range. It has access to the sniper optics, which gives it more accuracy and range, and it has minimal bullet drop. Alright, so that was the Sentinel, and we're done with the sniper rifles. So now it's time to move on to the shotguns. And up first for the shotguns, we got the Mozambique. So the shotgun's damage is going to be done a little differently because the shotgun's damage is based off of how many shots actually hit. So now that we got that out the way, the headshot damage for the Mozam is 54, 51, and 48. The body shot damage is 45, and the limb shot damage is also 45, which ends up giving us these totals. Now we can move on to the Mozam with attachments. So firstly, I want to say that shotguns don't get magazines, they get shotgun bolts, and the bolts increase the fire rate, not the amount of bullets. And the Mozam gets hammer points, so unshielded headshots do 72, 69, and 66. And unshielded body shots do 60, and limb shots also do 60. Because it's only unshielded damage, I times it by 6 to simulate all 6 shots, and then I added it to the previous damage totals and then divided it by 2 to get an average for all the totals. For shotguns, the closer the better, and the Mozam is no exception. It's great up close. It does a lot of consistent damage if you hit all your shots, and it has pretty decent range on it. And range is actually the underrated stat of the Mozam. It's great for mid-range as well. And because it's a pistol, you get the great strafe speed to go with it. Unfortunately, the range has a limit. Past 25 feet, it turns into trash. And there's way better options to use versus the Mozam from 30 feet away. Alright, so next up is the Peacekeeper, the second shotgun in its class. Alright, so let's get straight into the headshot damage. So the headshot damage for the PK is 121, 110, and 110 again. Alright, next up is the body shot damage. So the PK does 99 to the body and 99 to the limbs, which gives us these numeric totales. So the PK has access to disruptor rounds, and it disrupted my train of thought while I was doing the damage test. Because the headshot damage is 127 on white helmets, 122 on blue helmets, 126 on purple helmet, and 130 on red helmet. It just disrupted my rules of no red dummies. It also does body shot damage of 107 on white armor, 111 on blue armor, 117 on purple armor, and 121 on red armor. The limb shots were the same as the body shots, because that's just how the shotguns work. But could you believe that it did 121 damage? Yeah, I couldn't either. That's why I have these unbelievable numbers to show you. Alright, and now it's time to get into the range test. The Peacekeeper is a great close range weapon, and because it has the feature that allows you to choke the spread, it allows for hitting consistent damage from further ranges. And the further range does include mid-range because it's great from there too, and that's with or without disruptor rounds. Unfortunately, even with disruptor rounds, at long range the PK becomes trash. After a certain amount of distance, the bullets just aren't meant to be shot from that far. And even if you hit for like 45 maybe, there's just better options out there that you can use versus a shotgun. And alright, so now that we're done with the Peacekeeper, we're going to be heading to the last shotgun before we head to the light guns. And the last shotgun is the Mastiff. Alright, so let's just get straight into the headshot damage. So the headshot damage for the Mastiff is 104 on white helmets, 96 on blue helmets, and 96 on purple helmets. So for body shots, the Mastiff does 88, and for limb shots, it does 88 as well, giving us these pretty straightforward numbers. The Mastiff doesn't have a hop-up or an extended mag, so besides the shotgun bolt giving it faster fire rate, it pretty much is the same with or without attachments. The Mastiff from close range is great. The horizontal spread makes it very consistent, even if it's from like 10 to 15 feet. Using the Mastiff from 15 meters or further than that is okay, and I wouldn't recommend it, because the damage slowly starts to diminish from there, and it's not even viable no more at that point. Using the Mastiff past 25 meters is just trash, and it hits for 11s at most, and it's just outside of its range. But that's it for the shotguns. Now it's time to move on to the light guns. And the first light gun we'll be using is the P2020. Alright, now it's time to test the headshot damage of the standard issue pistol. So the headshot damage for the P2020 is 25 for white helmet, 23 for blue helmet, and 21 for purple helmets. Body shots do 18 damage per bullet, and limb shots do 16 damage per bullet. And those damages gives us these numbers. For the attachments, the P2020 can accept hammer points in the magazine, which results in 38 damage on white helmets, 34 damage on blue helmets, and 32 damage on purple helmets.
I got you right where I want you, little nigga. Go ahead, say cheese.
Yep. Bruh. Anyway, so the body shots with hammer points does 27, and the limb shots with hammer points does 24. And since the P2020 gets 21 bullets on the gold mag, I used the same calculations as I did on the Mozambique, and I got these numbers. The P2020 at close range is great. It has amazing hip fire, and because it's a pistol, it has that amazing strafe speed. The P2020 from mid-range is great. It has amazing stability, and with the hammer points, it can do some serious damage. Just like that. The P2020 is okay from long range. It's still pretty stable, but ultimately, there's better options out there. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't have the optics or the bullet size for it, so it's okay. Alright, now that we're done with the P20, it's time to move on to his cousin. Alright, so the next weapon we'll be testing is the RE45. Alright, so this is the RE45 without attachments. So the headshot damage on the RE is 17 on white helmet, 15 on blue helmet, and 14 on purple helmet. The body shot damage is 12, okay. And the limb shot damage is 11. And with those fast damages, we get these totals. So the attachments that can go on the RE is the magazine and the hop-up hammer points. So for unshielded headshots, the RE is doing 22 on white, 20 on blue, and 19 on purple helmet. Now for the body shot damage, it's doing 16, and for limb shots, it's doing 14. And using the same mathematical formulas we use for the other guns with hammer points, this is the numbers we get. The RE is great at close range, and if you hit your shots, the damage builds up very quickly, and it has great hip fire. It seems like all the pistols have this in common, but the RE is also great at mid-range. If you get the recoil pattern down, it's really smooth, and it has really great strafe speed. I'm happy to say the RE is trash at long range, because at long range, the bullets are just too small. It doesn't do enough damage per bullet, and there's just not enough bullets. There's way better options out there for long range. Alright, we're done with the range test for the RE, so now it's time to move on to the next weapon, which is the Alternator. Before we get into the testing, just let me know if you're enjoying the video down in the comments below, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. So for headshot damage, the Alternator is doing 19 on white helmet, 18 on blue helmet, and 17 on purple helmet. And for the body shot damage, it's doing 16, and for the limb shot damage, it's doing 13. And those damages alternate to these totals. So as far as attachments go, the Alternator can receive a magazine and the disruptor rounds. With all of its attachments, the Alternator's headshot damage is doing 22 on white, 21 on blue, and 20 on purple. Now for the body and limb shots. The Alternator is doing 19 on body shots and is doing 15 on limb shots, which concludes to these totals. Now it's on to the range test, and the Alternator is great at close range. It has amazing hip fire, and the recoil pattern is really easy to control. And if you have disruptor rounds, it shreds through armor at an alarming rate. And just like close range, at mid-range the Alternator is great. The recoil pattern is still really easy to control, and it also has pretty good damage on the bullet. Now at long range, the Alternator immediately becomes trash. The decline in accuracy becomes more noticeable at this range, and the recoil pattern becomes much harder to control. Alright, so that's it for the Alternator. It's time to move on to the next weapon. Alright, so the next weapon is the R99. Alright, so let's get into the R99 headshot damage without the attachments. So the headshot damage for the R9 is 13 on white helmets, 12 on blue helmets, and 12 on purple helmets. Alright, and so for the body shot damage, it does 11 to the body, and for limb shot damage, it does 9 to the limbs. And with that damage, we get these totals. With that out the way, it's time to get to the R99 with the attachments. So the R99 does not have a hop-up as a C-21, but it does have a magazine, which increases the bullets from 17 to 26. So with that, we get these numbers. Now it's time to range test the R99. And the R99 is great from close range. It has really good hip fire and the fire rate is amazing. The R9 for mid-range is okay. It's a solid damage option, but the recoil isn't as comfortable as it is close range. And at long range, the R9 is trash. It is not a good option for long range. All of the bullets are small, so it hits for 9 damage most of the time and is not stable at all. Now that we got the R9 out the way, it's time to move on to the next weapon. Alright, so now we're on the R301. So we're going to get straight into the headshot damage for the R301. So the R301 on white helmets does 21 damage, on blue helmets it does 18 damage, and on purple helmets it does 16 damage. So body shot damage for the R3 is 13, and limb shot damage for the R301 is 10. So with those damage numbers, we get these totals. So the R301 does not have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine. So it goes from 18 bullets to 28 bullets, which basically gives us these numbers. Now it's time to move on to the range test. The R301 is great from close range. It's always been known to have easy recoil control, and it has good hip fire. The R301 is great for mid-range. As an assault rifle, it feels the most comfortable from its range with its stability and fire rate. The R301 from long range is just okay. It does have the optics to extend its range, but ultimately, it just doesn't do enough damage per bullet. Now that the R301 is done, it's time to go to the next weapon. Damn, sound like I'm spitting some fire. And that's actually the next weapon, Spitfire. I know, I'm amazing. Alright, so for the headshot damage for the Spitfire, it does 25 on white helmets, 23 on blue helmets, and 21 on purple helmets. And for the body shot damage, it does 18, and for the limb shot damage, it does 15. So since that's the damage it spits out, these are the totals we get. Now on to the Spitfire's attachments. So the Spitfire doesn't have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, extending it from 35 to 50 bullets. So that's how we got these numbers. So now we're going to test the Spitfire's range. So the Spitfire at close range is great. It's surprisingly good hip fire and it has easy to control recoil, makes it really good up close. The Spitfire at mid-range is great. It has amazing stability and even if it doesn't have attachments, it has 35 bullets, so it's great for mid-range combat. The Spitfire is okay at long range. The damage isn't as consistent, it's not as stable, and the recoil isn't as easy to control. The Spitfire does have access to those bigger optics, but I think its comfort zone is the mid-range. Alright, so since we're done with the Spitfire, it's time to go to the last light gun, which is the G7. Alright, so let's get straight into the G7's headshot damage. So the G7 does 51 damage on white helmet, 44 damage on blue helmet, and 40 damage on purple helmet. And for the body shot damage, the G7 is doing 32 to the body, and for limb shot damage is doing 24 to the limbs. So with all those numbers, we get these damage totals. Alright, let's move to the G7 with attachments. So the G7 doesn't have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, extending the bullets from 10 to 20, which gives us these damage totals. Alright, so that was the G7 with attachments. Now it's time to test its range. The G7 at close range is okay. The fire rate is decent, but it's better from further distances, since it is a marksman weapon. The G7 at mid-range is great. The fire rate suits it perfectly for mid-range, and it has great stability. The G7 from long range is great. The fire rate really shines from this distance, and it has the access to those bigger optics, along with its great stability. Alright, and that was the G7, and that's it for the light guns. Alright, and that was part 1 of the gun ranking list. I will have the rankings for all of the guns in the second part of the video. But I do hope y'all enjoyed part 1 of the video, and if y'all did, like, comment, subscribe for more. Part 2 will be coming very soon. Thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time. Peace.